Hey guys, today's product review is on the Landyachtz El Peligro. It's one of the more controversial downhill boards on the market, with it easily being the narrowest downhill option at the moment. And yeah, that narrowness is pretty polarizing, with some people saying it's okay, others not liking it at all. And yeah, today I'm going to be giving you my experience with it and how that narrowness has affected the performance of this deck for me. So if you're interested in that, check out the review. Quick disclaimer as always, I did get this board for free and I am a Landyachtz team rider. However, that will not in any way affect the review. I'll be unbiased, fair and critical where I need to be. Let's quickly talk about the specifications of this board. It has a length of 31.6 inches. It has a width of 8.3 inches. It has a bit of an optical illusion here as well. Because of the wheel flares, it looks like it gets wider here, but no, you have a consistent 8.3 inches width between these 2 points along the board. In terms of wheelbase, you have a single wheelbase of 21.5 inches. Construction-wise, the board is made with 9 plies of maple sandwiched between 2 layers of carbon. Where is it made? It's made at the Berkeley factory in Kimberley, BC. In terms of concave features, you have wheel flares at the front. You also have W, that's really mellow and stops just shy of where your front foot goes. In terms of flash mounting, you get a 1/4 inch deep worth of flash mounting. The wheel wells are also a 1/4 inch deep as well. And yeah, in terms of price, the board goes for about $270. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to interview Dane Hanna, so yeah, this review is not going to have any juicy questions or any juicy insight, so yeah, that's unfortunate. But yeah, if you want more details, if you want a more articulated description of what this board does, highly recommend you check out the write-up, link in the description. Let's kick it off with a bit of a summary. The Landyachtz El Peligro has quickly become one of my favorite boards in the quiver. The board is insanely comfortable and ergonomic, and I've really enjoyed skating it. In terms of concave, the rails are pretty mellow, and the only really apparent concave feature are the wheel flares at the front. The W and the other stuff at the back is so mellow that it wouldn't really be fair to count it. When it comes to the width, yes, the El Peligro is narrow, and depending on your riding style, it may or may not affect you as a rider. Personally, it did affect me, and whilst I did eventually get used to riding it and I was able to make the most out of it, there was a very frustrating period of trial and error. But yeah, key point, it affected me as a rider, but it may not affect you. Yeah, altogether, I think the El Peligro is a great board that a lot of riders will enjoy. Yes, the width might be a point of contention, but I don't think it'll be an issue for most people, just some. Okay, let me quickly talk about how I had my El Peligro setup in terms of trucks. Of course, I was running the Bear 2020 Smokies. I would sometimes run the Rogues, and I set them up in a similar way. So at the front, I had a 73 and 78A Venom bushing combination with a flat washer on the roadside. At the back, I had a 95A and 97A bushing combination with a cupped washer on the roadside bushing. In terms of risers, I would always run a 1/8 inch riser. That felt best with this setup. I explain why more in the review. In terms of wheels, I would run cheetahs primarily, but I also tested out the wheels like the Quays and the Slide Perfect Flux. In terms of bearings, I'm running the Bear Spaceball bearings, but I also run like the SMB bearings and Zillus as well sometimes. In terms of footstop, I was running the Nether Skate Mini Inside-Outside Riptide knockoff or the Roger Bros Daggers Rule footstop. Grip tape, I had the locked-on solid sheets. I have the 36 grit in front and the 60 grit in the back. Torque block, this, I know it looks chewed up and stuff. Had a bit of an accident, but yeah, this is the lever wedge from Slide Perfect, and yeah, this is 60 grit locked in, and that's pretty much it. Let's kick it off with the most asked question about this board. Is it too narrow? The answer is kinda yes, kinda no. So in terms of performance and results, no. I've been able to skate this board very well. I've been skating some of the gnarliest hills I have access to, skating very fast, going very fast around corners. So in terms of results and performance, not really. In terms of how I feel about the board, yes. I have not been able to, feel fully comfortable on this board, and in turn that's affected my confidence. So yeah, it's not narrow in terms of performance results, but in terms of how I feel and how comfortable I am, yes it is, and allow me to explain why. Just also want to quickly point out something. I ride all my boards with my heels hanging off a little bit, so if you see pictures of me with the El Peligro and my heel hanging off or videos, that's just how I ride them. Yeah, I've literally ridden all my boards like that. Okay, in order to test the narrowness of the El Peligro, I had set it and my small blind up to be as identical as possible. I set it up with the same trucks, Smokies and Rogues, same footstop positioning. On the El Peligro, I had a 1/4 inch riser to counter the flash, basically as similar as I could get them to be. And after riding both of them back to back, switching between trucks on the same day during the same session, I found that the narrowness affected my hillside stuff on the El Peligro. Everything else was pretty much okay. I'm talking about tool size, I'm talking about stability or whatever. Everything else was fine. It's just I found that the hillside was affected, and here's why or and how or what I think and my research and blah blah blah. So why is the width of the El Peligro an issue, and how is it different from other boards? Now the El Peligro is a consistent 8.3-inch width. With other boards, yes, they also start narrow at the top, but they tend to get wider as you get closer to the middle of the board. With the small blind, for example, it gets wider the farther you go down, and about where your heel sits, you have about 9 inches of board to work with. So yeah, this allows you to have a lot of leverage over the trucks in comparison to the 8.3-inch width of the El Peligro. So on the same trucks, you're going to have more leverage on the small blind on your heels with its 9-inch width than on the El Peligro with its 8.3-inch width where your heels go. So what issues did I have with the El Peligro with my heel side stuff that I didn't have on the small blind? So with the El Peligro, I could never get my heel side slides to feel perfect. My front foot would always kind of lift off the board, and I could never get the board to rotate as quickly heel side, or rather dive as quickly heel side as I would have liked. And I never really got those snappy hookups and smooth controllable breakouts into the slide as I did with the small blind. Now, I don't think there's anything wrong with El Peligro per se. I think it's just my riding style is not suited for it. I'm too used to riding boards that are a bit wider around my heel. And I also don't have very good lower body flexibility, and I think in some way that affected my experience with the board. However, I did have some trial and error. I did try some new stuff, and I was able to make the board perform a lot better for me with hillside stuff, and here's what I did. So in order to fix this issue that I had with the El Peligro, I had to really sit into the board and really lock myself into that hillside position before really either turning hillside or kicking the board out into a slide. It's almost like I had to preload the board, and yeah, I wasn't really allowed to dive suddenly anymore and really pre-carve into hillside slides. I just had to sit into the board, and this gave me the best results. My foot would remain flat, and I was able to get those really crisp and smooth releases into the slides, and as well as those crisp hookups. And yeah, though this fix has worked for me, it's meant being very conscious of how I skate, and at this point my skating is pretty much built around fixed habits. It's not very easy for me to do this time and again, and sometimes I get really smooth slides and really like crisp hookups, but sometimes I don't get that as well. So yeah, it's been very inconsistent. And yeah, at the time of this review, looking back, I think I should have tried a 45-degree plate instead of a 50-degree plate in front, and this would have given me a bit more lean, and it would have been easier to keep my front foot flat. Unfortunately, I did get into a bit of an accident a few weeks ago, so I can't really skate now. But yeah, I think that's a solution that would have worked, and I'm going to try it as soon as I get better and update you guys. So how much did this hillside issue affect me as a rider? It affected me not that much and quite a bit, if that makes sense. In terms of performance and results, I was still skating pretty well. I was still going fast. I was still like managing to get down these really big and intense and gnarly mountain roads or whatever. But in terms of confidence, it affected me a lot. There were lines I didn't take. There were times I didn't tuck a straight because I wasn't really sure if I could slow down in the way I would have liked, having the amount of control I would have liked. So yeah, it didn't affect me that much, but it just didn't let me, really push my limits and really send it. But maybe I'm going about this the wrong way. I have put some of the best laps down on some of the gnarliest Kenyan roads of my life with this board. Maybe it doesn't matter that much. Maybe I'm relying on having this feel too much. And the next question is, will you have a similar experience if you buy this board? And the answer is probably not. I have my own issues as a rider. I don't have very good lower body flexibility, and to be honest, I'm not the best at hillside stuff, period. I can skate well, but I can't skate as well as I would like. You might be able to skate better, so it all boils down to your riding style. As well, when you watch Danger Dane, he and loads of other riders as well are able to make the most out of this board. He's able to skate at the highest level and win and all that good stuff. So yeah, it probably won't affect you, but that said, it might, and if it does, hey, I've just outlined a solution for you. You can make the most out of this board. And yeah, who knows, maybe if I do get used to this, I can become a much better rider. I have been skating this board really, really well, and maybe I just need to overcome this small thing to become a really, really good rider. And yeah, interesting stuff, a bit polarizing. I don't know. If you skate the El Peligro and you've had a similar experience to this, please comment below and let me know what you think. Let's talk about how flush mounting affects the ride. So you get about a 1/4 inch worth of flush mounting on this board. In riding, this translates to more stability. You have less height over your trucks, so you have less leverage, and your input into your trucks is feathered out a little bit, or rather every movement you make is not transferred into the trucks, and you get a lot more stability. Also, road feedback is feathered out a bit more, and it doesn't become as strong as well. In practice, This setup feels a lot more solid over chanda and rougher roads, and basically anywhere where the trucks will be twitchy or provide a bit of feedback as a result of the road conditions. As a result, I felt very confident on this board, and with the Smokies, I'd feel very happy taking it 70 miles per hour. I've skated it on this really fast, sort of rough, bumpy chanda run that gets up to 80k, and was so comfortable just sort of sitting there in my tuck and just going over the bumps and not really worried or getting thrown about too much. Was really great. Finally, it makes it easier to put a puck down into the slide as you lower to the ground, and also transitioning from gripping to sliding feels a little bit smoother and more controlled. Okay, but did the flush mounting negatively affect the ride? I'd say using the full quarter-inch flush mounting did negatively affect the ride. Sometimes when skating the Smokies, I felt like I didn't have enough leverage to get the trucks to articulate as quickly as I wanted them to, and the slides were also affected a little bit, particularly when I was using wheels like Concave wheels and the cheetah sometimes as well. Sometimes they wouldn't slide very smooth as I couldn't really sit on top of them enough, and yeah. But what I ended up doing was throwing a 1/8 inch of a riser, and that really improved performance on these wheels. I was able to get the quays to slide pretty smooth, and they just felt a lot more controllable. But yeah, with the 1/8 inch riser, I was able to get a lot of the advantages of the flush, but also not as many of the disadvantages. You know, the board was able to turn in quicker. I still got a lot of stability, and the slides on wheels like the quays were smoother overall. But yeah, having a flush like this means a lot more freedom with the angles, and just allows you to dial in your board a little bit more. I had a lot of fun running 53-23 with a 3-degree risers, and yeah, it was really fun. So I really think most downhill boards should have a little bit of flush mounting, just so you can mess around with angles and really dial in your board just a little bit more. Another weird thing I noticed, I could never make the slalom ropes feel good on this board without a 1/4 inch riser. I think that might just be the nature of the trucks. You need to have decent leverage over them to make them feel best. But yeah, I couldn't make them feel very good without just basically negating the flush mounting. And yeah, it wasn't an issue on the Smokies, you know, hashtag Smokies propaganda. But yeah, with the Rogues, it was an issue. I think maybe with the new insert of the Smokies, that might be an issue. We'll see with time. But yeah, I think with slalom trucks, you just need to have a decent amount of leverage. Otherwise, you're not really going to get the performance that you want out of them. Quickly talk about the rocker of this board. Yes, this board has rocker. It's not as noticeable, but yeah, it does aid in the stability a little bit. Not as much as the flush mounting, I think, but yeah, it also, I think, helps makes the transition into sliding a bit smoother and the hookup smoother as well. But yeah, there is rocker. It's not that deep, but it does affect the ride a bit too. Let's talk about the concave of this board. So like as I did say, at the front you have wheel flares, you have W that goes throughout the board, which stops just shy of where your front foot goes, and then at the back you don't really have any concave features to speak of, if we're being honest. At the front, these wheel flares are really nice. They're great for pushing against for toe sides, and Dane says they help block him in for like hillside stuff. I didn't experience that, but yeah, the W ends just before where your front foot goes, and it's not really apparent. But yeah, the W is super mellow, and you can't really even feel it under your foot. It's just insanely mellow. It might as well not be there. Honestly, if you want to use the W, you might have to add a concave mod, whether that's laying some duct tape down and layering it so it's more aggressive. Up to you. But yeah, at the back, basically have no concave features to speak of. I think there aren't any wheel flares at all. Bruh, there's just basically no concave features here. I didn't make sense. Dane Hanna runs a torque block, and I think suggests you run this board with a torque block as well. So yeah, it makes sense. He has a torque block. Why would he need any concave features at the back here? But yeah, I've run this board without a torque block and skated it pretty fast, but I did have free brake soles and 36 grit lock turn, so my back foot was locked in. I do think you should run this board with a torque block, especially if you have issues with, you know, finding your foot position at speed. And yeah, I'm also used to skating boards that are very flat and don't have any concave at the back, so I feel very at home on that. So yeah, your experience might vary, but I do recommend you run this board with a torque block. And yeah, my torque block is busted and chewed up because my board slid under a car like this. But yeah, overall this board is really comfortable. The rails at the front are really mellow, and they're just really easy to sit on and put your heel against and sit on and all that good stuff. And yeah, this board is really ergonomic as well. It's just really easy to stand anywhere on this board. The concave doesn't really force your feet into any awkward positions or into any specific position, so you can really find a position you're comfortable with. And yeah, I think it should be great for riders who of all stances essentially. So yeah, Okay, let's talk about how stiff this board is. Yes, this board is pretty stiff, but it does have deep wheel wells and it does have deep flush mounting as well, and that results in a tiny bit of flex. In comparison to the small blind, it does have a little bit more flex. The construction is super solid. This board is a tank. I know you guys are seeing this crack here, but this board literally went under a motorcycle going like 60k per hour, and this board was also going like 60k per hour, something like that. I don't know, but it is a tank, and of course the wheel wells chipped, and the wheel wells are the weakest part of any board, but it's pretty solid otherwise. Okay, so a cool feature of this board, you have this little bit of extra board at the back, and this is really nice because when you kick up the board, it prevents your trucks from touching the ground and really getting scraped. And yeah, it's just a really nice feature, and I like that this is there. Keeps your truck fresh in case you ever want to sell them and just want them to look good. So what wheels and trucks are going to work really well for the El Peligro? Now, this is a race board with a rather small wheelbase of only 21.5 inches. It's only really going to perform best with trucks that have a big split and that are quite narrow as well. For example, the Landyachtz, or rather the Bear Smokies, are going to be perfect for this. They're going to have a base plate of 50 degrees in the front and a base plate of 20 degrees in the back with a width of 120 millimeters. Pretty much going to be perfect for this setup. Other trucks that are going to be great are going to be Rogues, Don't Trip Hackies, and yeah, whatever else you can find. But yeah, if you don't set it up in that way, this board is not going to perform well at all, and yeah, it's just going to perform poorly. In terms of wheels, basically anything you want to run that's compatible with your trucks and that's not really going to be too wide for this board. Okay, next up, what are things I didn't like about the Landyachtz El Peligro? So the only thing I really didn't like was the width. I just wish it was a little bit wider where my heel goes. If it was just an eighth of an inch wider, I'd be pretty happy. But who knows, maybe that wouldn't fix my issue. Maybe my issue comes as a result of something else altogether. You know, it's really hard to know if the narrowness really was an issue, but I think it is. But yeah, just an eighth of an inch wider under my heels, and I think this board would be perfect. So who shouldn't buy the El Peligro? Don't buy the El Peligro if you don't have trucks designed for it and you can't afford them. These trucks usually go for about $400 and they're quite expensive. But you need to keep in mind that this board is designed to perform at the highest level of downhill skateboarding. So yeah, things that are going to be suited for this board are going to be quite expensive. So you don't have those trucks, don't buy this board. Also, don't buy this board if you're not ready for a board that's as narrow as this. Okay, so who is the El Peligro right for? If you're psychologically prepared for a narrower board, if you want a high quality board, if Dane Hanna is your favorite rider, the El Peligro is right for you. If you want a comfortable, small downhill board, if you want a downhill board with a lot of flush mounting, it's a great option. And if my review makes it sound appealing for you. And if you do want to buy the El Peligro, highly recommend you use the link in the description. It's an affiliate link, so if you do end up buying the board, I just get something in return, helps support me and this channel and keeps me basically reviewing stuff. It's really nice. So what do you guys think? Is the El Peligro right for you? I think in the hands of the right rider, this board is going to be amazing. And not just the right rider, I think most riders, if I'm being honest. It's really hard to know whether my issues, or rather the issues I had with the board, are going to be the issues you experience as well. But in my experience, I tend to have experiences that other riders don't, if that makes sense. I don't know, man, whatever. But I do still think it's a great board. I have adapted to it and I am going to continue skating it as well. Big thanks to my patrons. I couldn't do this without you guys' support. Big thanks to Landyachtz for sponsoring me and sending me this board. And yeah, big thanks to the subscribers as well. If there's anything else you want to know about this board, leave a comment. And yeah, thanks for watching this video.